Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, what a great day this is. We're just so excited about the opportunity to celebrate this momentous landmark for our national laboratory. And we're so happy that you could be here with us to help celebrate. And the reason we arranged this forum before the luncheon ceremony was just the recognition that every great laboratory has a strong and supportive partnership with its community and its region. And we really appreciate the support and the mutual benefit we get from all of you in this community. And we wanted to use this as an opportunity to both recognize our appreciation for that, but also to hear your voices in this, because this laboratory is going to be here for many, many years to come. And we want to make sure that the directions we're taking it are really consistent with where this community wants to go as well. So thank you again for coming. We have a very distinguished Master of Ceremonies for the event this morning, Dr. David Moody, who is the Department of Energy Savannah River Site Manager. And he will introduce the distinguished panel we have to represent the various perspectives of the community and take us through the program. So.
First of all, I want to extend my thanks for all of you being here, and I'll talk a little bit about the individuals on the panel, and we'll kick this off. But first, I want to thank my boss, David Klaus, for being here. From my immediate boss is sitting on the panel, Dave Huizinga, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But the Deputy Undersecretary who has responsibility for environmental management, the landlord, if you will, of Savannah River National Laboratory is here. We toured him yesterday, and right after this we're going to hit the road again so that he has firsthand knowledge of the Savannah River site. And this isn't his first rodeo as it applies to the Department of Energy, and I won't steal his remarks, but I'd like for us to welcome David Klaus, Undersecretary.
First, thank you, Dr. Moody, and thank you, Terry. Is this on? I guess so. I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm particularly pleased that to have to start with this group of people who are really the key to making this laboratory a success, from the standpoint of the local community, from the standpoint of the state, from the standpoint of the local business community that interact with this. On behalf of Secretary Moniz, Deputy Secretary Poneman, and the entire department, we're here to congratulate the lab on 10 extremely successful years, and looking forward to another extended more than 10 years. You usually start with 10 years, but you want to go more than that. We look forward to a long and prosperous future with the lab and to the site as a whole. I think, when we think about Savannah River and the Savannah River site, this is a place where the department makes about a $2 billion a year investment every year across the site. And it is, for us, a key component of achieving the national security mission. That is the central mission that actually started the department during the Manhattan Project back at a time when it was so critical, and has continued to this day to be a key and core component of why the department is here. It is a critical component of the EM mission. The environmental management mission is one that, as you know, the legacy of the Cold War of accomplishing the Cold War mission across the country has left us with nuclear waste challenges at Hanford, at Savannah River, at Oak Ridge, and at literally hundreds of smaller sites across the country that the department is responsible to clean up. And one of the things that the lab does best and is absolutely essential for is helping us do it more efficiently, more effectively, to bring new science to that mission, to have it, to help us in a time when all of us are dealing with less resources, to help us accomplish that mission in an effective way. But the third thing, and I think why it's important to have this group of stakeholders here at this meeting today, is that we see the Savannah River National Laboratory and the entire national laboratory system as drivers of the local economies, of the state economies, of the U.S. global competitiveness. And one of the things that I think is most interesting, as we talked with Terry, is the 100 corporate partners that work with the lab, 100+ corporate partners that work with the lab on an ongoing basis, the innovations and the technologies that have application not just for the Department of Energy's mission, but have much broader application. As the U.S. moves to become the innovation economy of the world, that's where our competitive advantage is going to lie. And having the national laboratories and the Savannah River National Laboratory helping lead that way, you know, and you think about it, it's not, you know, we are actually as a country leading the way in confronting the environmental challenges that we have. We've led the way in terms of the air pollution control initiatives. A lot of the rest of the world is behind us. The developing world certainly is behind us in that regard. A lot of other countries have environmental management and waste issues to deal with. And so we see the laboratory as key not just to accomplishing the United States' challenges in dealing with the nuclear waste and the waste mission and the waste challenges that we have across the country, but that we believe that the national laboratory can develop technologies that will help the rest of the world do that. And that, in turn, is going to make us more competitive. That's what the United States can, that's the future, in many respects, of how this country is going to be competitive in the world and global economy. And so I think I'm particularly pleased to see all of the local stakeholders here, to see the state, local, regional folks, to see the business community represented, because they're key stakeholders in what makes this laboratory a success. I'm going to speak a little bit more at the public event, so I'm going to stop my remarks here and turn it over to the panel, but I just want to say how pleased I am to see just the tremendous support that this lab has from the community and how important that is to the department in accomplishing our missions, and in particular accomplishing the missions of the laboratory. So thank you.
Thank you very much for those kickoff remarks. I'm going to briefly present our panel to you. They will then follow with a few brief remarks, and if they're brief enough, we may have time for a few questions and answers as well. So I will. That's my usual hint. First of all, my boss, Dave Huizinga, my immediate boss, who manages the environmental management program nationwide, almost $6 billion annual budget, the toughest cleanup mission in the world. And yes, we are far ahead of many other nations in that cleanup arena. And first of all, Dave is no stranger to the Savannah River site. Throughout his DOE career, he spent a lot of time here at the site, been in the trenches with some of us at various times, and certainly we're happy that he's here with us today. And immediately beside him is Dr. Sandra Jordan in her second year as Chancellor of USC Aiken. I've already heard "Go Gamecocks" earlier this morning, so for her parent facilities. Dr. Jordan has spent her 30-year career in higher education in various southeastern universities, and is really strong at building alliances and partnerships. And so it's not an accident that she's here, as we're really talking about those partnerships and alliances with the local universities. And so she's here really representing the regional colleges and universities. And then Aiken Chamber of Commerce President Dave Jamison, David knows the importance that the site and the National Laboratory have played in the fabric of our regional community, and the growing impact of Savannah River National Laboratory in economic development in the region. And so we're thankful that Dave is here, followed by South Carolina Senator Tom Young, who in his first term as senator, previously serving at Aiken County in the House of Representatives, lifelong resident of Aiken, here to represent the perspectives of state government and really to discuss the connection between the state and the laboratory in that partnership and the potential for unlocking growth for new industry and a skilled future workforce. Those of you who follow his blogs understand his commitment to those areas. Then Bruce Stansky, the president of Floor Government Group, also chairs the board of directors, and my usual interactions with Bruce is in that frequent meeting with the board of directors for Savannah River Nuclear Solutions, the operators of Savannah River National Laboratory. I'm really glad Bruce could make it. If you have an opportunity to visit the Advanced Research Campus just down the road, I'm really thankful that Floor has seen fit to help invest in new materials laboratories as we look at our partnerships for the futures. And so I'm really thankful that Bruce was able to make it and look at a parent's view of its child and how it's growing for the future. And finally, a familiar face, Dr. Susan Wood, served as laboratory director from 1994 to 2003. She also continues to be involved in the laboratory, serving on a member of the lab's external advisory board. She certainly firsthand understands the role that the National Laboratory plays in the overall technology interface and understands the challenges that we face. And so with that, I will turn it over to Dave to start the few comments.
Thank you all for joining us today. It is a very special occasion, and indeed, as Dave mentioned, I've had the opportunity and honor to be working with you folks for a long time, both with the lab and with the workforce here and with the local communities. Susan and I were chatting a little bit about some of the projects that we worked on when she was here, and where some of the folks that were working are now working up at headquarters. People have moved around a little bit, but throughout all this, the local community has been hugely supportive, so I certainly appreciate that. And Terry, working with you and Dwayne and your team now is indeed very inspiring. I'll just share a little bit of kind of the visibility that you guys are getting. David Klaus and I were in a secretarial award ceremony the other day, and the lab was being recognized up there for some of the work that you did in helping to close some of the tanks here, and there's also some of the global threat reduction work, the non-proliferation work that you have made contributions to. And so and also the work that you've done on next generation solvent, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but these are clearly people are recognizing the skills and the talent that is here at the lab, and we want to encourage even more of that, obviously. And what do I mean by that? We actually really need each other. I'm sure you want to do work, and we need you to do work, because as you'll hear, really we've got in the EM portfolio we've been working on cleanup for very focused fashion for 25 years now, and we spend about $140 billion across the complex, starting with over 100 sites, now down to 16 sites, so we've made a lot of progress. But that's the good news. The other news is that we've still got over $200 billion to go. So to the extent that we have $200 billion challenge ahead of us across the complex, both cleaning up here at Savannah River, at Hanford, your partners at Oak Ridge and Idaho and some of the other big sites. We need innovation, and the innovation really comes from folks like you and folks like the people you've got on the team here at the lab. So, what you've already done, I remember, Dave, when we were here celebrating the PNR reactor closure, you guys did the modeling to demonstrate to the state that, that you could button those reactors up in a safe fashion for a long time. You've done a lot of groundwater, work as well. When Terry was up in Washington, within the last month, we briefed the Secretary's Advisory Board on the notion again that it's a good investment to and necessary investment to invest in the future in terms of technology development and innovation, because to the extent that you could shave some cost or receive some savings, we'll be able to do more with the budgets that we have, so that the $200 billion effort will be either done for less than $200 billion or at least be done perhaps faster and more efficient. So there's a clear need and a clear recognition that you've already made a major contribution. David Klaus and I will, I think, have an opportunity to go through the ARP MCU facility later on today and see where they're using the next generation solvent. And for those of you that aren't completely familiar with that, that was a clever way to work with chemists from around the DOE complex at a number of different labs, but really being driven out of the lab right here to find a way to grab hold of cesium in a more efficient way and strip it out of a liquid waste stream. And that will ultimately save billions of dollars, here and potentially up at Hanford. So not only do things, improve the operations here, but we use these lessons learned and share this information across the complex. So I just want to, again, thank you for what you have done. I'm looking forward to working with you for, a long time in the future. I came to environmental management, Dave mentioned, a long time ago, in 1992, I guess, we started working together. And the only thing I really regret is that Greg Rudy took the K reactor tower down before he said I could climb it with him. And now it's gone. So I guess that's evidence of progress, but I'll have to find another tower to climb. But I look forward to coming down here and visiting you guys. And we'll continue to do so. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present on behalf of the colleges and universities who partner with the National Laboratory. And I see several of my university colleagues in the audience. I have to begin with a small history lesson, particularly for those of you who are not with the Department of Energy, because, I'm a college professor, so we always start. In ancient Greece, no, I'm kidding.
That's way back before 1992, yeah.
After World War I, the government really began to invest seriously in scientific research, and this was in the name of national security. But the system of centralized national labs really grew out of needs of World War II and massive scientific endeavors and new technologies that proved to be the turning point, really, in the war and proved decisive for Allied victories. So there's been at that point and moving forward, a long partnership with colleges and universities. From the very beginning, national labs were partnered with universities to maximize effort, to leverage intellectual capital. University scientists, promising graduate students and undergraduate students, and government researchers cooperated at unprecedented levels, and the results were absolutely uncommon and created a tremendous benefit for the United States. There are many examples of this. Those early partnerships, MIT and the radiation laboratory there, the Ernest O. Lawrence Laboratory, at the University of California, Berkeley. They point to those early partnerships between the nascent national laboratories and colleges and universities. Today, the Department of Energy and the national laboratories is one of, if not the largest, scientific research systems in the world. The DOE provides, last thing I saw was about 40 to 45% of the total national funding for physics, chemistry, material sciences, and other areas of the physical sciences. Many of the national laboratories are locally managed by private companies, while others are still managed by academic universities. And as a system, they form one of the overarching and far-reaching components in what's known as the Iron Triangle. That's military, academia, and industry coming together for what they're now calling big science. And big science is science that really can only be produced in partnerships because of the requirements of equipment, devices, technology, and space. There are many, many mutual benefits related to partnerships between colleges, universities, and national laboratories. And I'd like to outline just a couple of those. As we look across the DOE complex, the positive synergies between successful national labs and regional academic institutions is absolutely unmistakable. Some of these collaborations have been around a long time, like Berkeley's collaboration or the collaborations associated with MIT. Others, such as those at Oak Ridge and Sandia, have developed more recently, but all of them have in common the fact that these synergies help both the laboratory and the universities to succeed in their missions. With the centralization of resources, and this is both monetary resources as well as those human resources, the intellectual resources, and with this collaboration, the national labs serve really as an exemplar of what's necessary to conduct big science in America. Among the values that are created from this synergy and this collaboration that's essential to both institutions is the importance of spanning scientific disciplines and taking scientists taking innovation to the next level, which is application. Academic communities bring intellectual vibrancy to the national laboratories. And vice versa, the national laboratories introduce new concepts and provide access to devices and materials and laboratories that are not available on the college campus, thus bringing new ideas into the college classrooms. The students working with mentors both at the national lab and mentors back on their campuses who are faculty all benefit from this relationship. And then it spills beyond that into the classroom with students who don't have those experiences at the national labs but benefit from it secondhand. We're also neighbors, and I think it's important for neighbors to cooperate with one another. And what we have here then becomes like a regional cluster of creative, scientific, and innovation. And that's important to many levels of our community, and I'm sure David is going to talk about that. As a chancellor, I can tell you that having a national lab in our backyard is absolutely essential because science requires complex facilities. Science requires complex equipment and devices, and it requires individuals who have a deep understanding of scientific methodology and the use of this equipment far beyond what we can offer at the university. But I'd like to mention just one other thing, and if Terry is going to allow me, I'm just going to speak from my own experience. We're all in the education business, those of us from universities, and we can talk about any number of our students, but I want to mention my son, if I might, my son Matthew. Matthew attended a private liberal arts university in Virginia, and while he was there, he was a double major. He loved math. He was great in music. He did music performance major, and he did a physics major, and he went back and forth about where his greatest love was. And then he went to the Jefferson Labs, the accelerator out in the Virginia countryside, and worked side by side with scientists there, physicists who were working, smashing stuff, I think particles, and he was doing some research with them. He was an undergraduate, so the research that he was doing was at a very elemental level, but not for him. It was absolutely a transformational opportunity for him. Music is something he still loves, but this is a kid who's gone on to work at the Argonne National Lab in engineering. He's now an electrical engineering doctoral student working at the French National Lab in Metz, France. And it all began because of a partnership between the local university, a small liberal arts institution, and the Jefferson National Lab, who understood that students really get turned on with science if they get to practice it next to a scientist. So speaking on behalf of my colleagues in higher education, nothing is more important to professional educators than getting students excited about the work that they'll be doing. And I thank you for that opportunity.
Sandra would be more than happy to send you her son's resume.
2 more years.
From the community standpoint, the influx of scientists and engineers that came here in the 50s changed the face of Aiken and the CSRA forever. And it was a positive change. It was a good change. We attracted the best minds in America to come to this very location. There was a time, I don't believe it's still true, but it might be close, there was a time that there were more PhDs resident at the Savannah River site than collectively at all the colleges and universities in South Carolina. That was an impressive bragging point. And these folks came into our community, and they quickly became involved and engaged in our community. And we worked side by side to make our community and our region better. I've got the distinct honor, one of my front door neighbors is one of the originals from here at the site. And he's got interesting stories to tell, his instructions of getting out of college and arriving here during all that construction and all the buildup that took place. Of course, in the beginning, people didn't work at the Savannah River site. They worked at the plant. And there was a huge philosophy here that loose lips sink ships, and no one talked very much about what they did. So you never knew when you were talking to somebody whether you were talking to a rock star chemist or a janitor, because nobody talked very much about it. Now, the downside of all that influx in the community was the fourth grade science fair. And it was just impossible for a child whose parent had a business degree with a minor in marketing to have a chance at the science fair. But I will say our backboards were always beautiful. Our project was terrible. But back then, everybody that worked at the site, and at that point it was the Savannah River Laboratory, but everybody that worked here had a focus on science and technology. And it was very clear what they were trying to do. It was single-purposed. It was very important. It was a secret purpose, and that was to do their part to win the Cold War, and that's exactly what happened. And it's a great pride to live somewhere where a group of people are coming to work every day, then and now, with the sole intent to support the needs of America and save the world. I think we've talked about that some already. We're doing this for America right here at this site. And then a decade ago, after a lot of hard work from lots of folks and a lot of leadership, I would say, from Senator Graham, who you're going to hear from later today, this became the Savannah River National Laboratory. And adding that national to the title made a huge difference. And I'm not sure to this day that the community that the civilians realize how much of a difference this means to the site. But I know that it's a difference. In another role at another chamber in another part of the country, we hired a consultant about 15 years ago to say, how can our community rekindle the entrepreneurial spirit that we seem to have lost? We had become a very corporate community with a very corporate culture, and that did not include innovation and design and all the kinds of things that we talked about. We raised a lot of money and we paid a lot of money for a consultant to come in and tell us that we could probably rekindle the entrepreneurial spirit, but we had two strikes against us as a starting point. One, we did not have a national laboratory in our community or anywhere nearby, and we didn't have a research university in our community or anywhere nearby. And without those things, it was going to be harder to do. But if we happened to have those things, we'd be in great shape. Well, 2 years after this became the Savannah River National Laboratory, I moved back to Aiken. I'm recycled here and have lived here once and then went away for a number of years and then came back, like so many people that work in this community do. But one of the first things I realized is that from where my chair is in my office, I'm 18 miles from a national laboratory and I'm 18 miles from a research university. We have a lot of the components that can make this work for our region. And you know, every day now we can celebrate the investments because of the federal clients and the private sector partners that the National Lab attracts, and the broader work and the broader mission that they can do for this community. Back in 2010, I was one of the community folks that was allowed to come out and tour the FBI's newly expanded radiological evidence examination facility. And you know, it's a point of pride that this is resident to our community, that when the FBI needs this expertise and help, they come here, and they're not just coming here working with people, they're working with people who are our friends and our neighbors and people that we see every day that have this expertise. And the momentum continues. That was kind of a starting point. I see that as one of those benchmark moments. But since then, there have been more than 100 commercial agreements. We heard that a little bit earlier. But we're having names like Ford and Westinghouse and Boeing and many other very recognizable names are coming to the Savannah River National Lab for expertise. 8 different technologies since 2012 have actually been commercialized and put into the public sector for the first time. Companies like Hadron Microwave Technologies are developing activities over in the Applied Research Center, and they plan to take this and move it to manufacturing in South Carolina, and this is the kind of projects that we're looking for. Hologlass Microspheres is finding medical applications licensed by GRU. What a great regional partnership that is, and that goes further to connect the lab and GRU and hopefully open doors for other things that can happen in our community. We continue to be proud of the scientists and engineers that help keep our nation safe and help to protect our environment. As a community, we are very interested in tapping this brain power and the creative juices that the folks from the lab have and trying to find new ways to bring this into the private sector. This must be a priority. This is an opportunity that if we cannot figure out how to take advantage of, we are missing. The lab has competition, though. This lab has competition, and I think it's interesting or I think we need to be aware of what this competition is. Sandia National Lab 20 years ago saw a huge investment in their lab, and they created a 340-acre technology park. They've created some 2,400 direct jobs because of that, another 4,100 indirect jobs, and those jobs are paying an average of $74,000 a year. Those are great jobs, but that's because there was investment made there. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory has seen a $500 million worth of investment since 2000, and now the Oak Ridge Innovations Valley is ranked #1 in the U.S. for green job growth. And 90 companies have spun out of there since 2000. This is what we'd like to see here. We need to see more of this. In recent years, there's been more and more talk about the infrastructure needs at the Savannah River National Lab. And we all know that that's the case. We need maintenance and we need enhancements here. This for many, and from all practical purposes, is a 50-plus-year-old building. And it's time, it's overdue. It's not just time, it is overdue for the capital improvements that need to take place here. Because it's a very competitive job market out there. And if we're going to continue to recruit new young talent, they want to come to new facilities that have all the bells and whistles and all the golly gees, and when they're out interviewing and have the chance to look at one versus the other, that could be a deciding point. And we'd like to see a modern, accessible, campus-like setting for the National Lab as much as we could. I had the chance to visit the Idaho National Lab last year in Idaho Falls. I bet many of you in this room have been there. The thing that impressed me the most, and with my eye on economic vitality and business development, what impressed me the most was what was going on there with construction of laboratory facilities, I believe by the private sector, but leased to the laboratory, in downtown Idaho Falls, not 45 minutes out at the site, but downtown. And scientists and engineers, hundreds and hundreds of scientists and engineers are working downtown. That is where we need to go. That could be the perfect model for us to take a look at to see what we could cause to happen here with infrastructure investment. I know that some of it has to be on this side of the fence, but some of it could be on the other side of the fence, and we'd like to see more of that happen. So it's time to double down on our investment. It's time to create a big win for the local economy, and we're willing to work hand in hand with you to cause that to happen.
Thank you, David. My name's Tom Young, and I'm a member of the South Carolina State Senate. I live here locally in Aiken, as was stated in the introduction, and I want to just say that on behalf of our legislative delegation, we are very excited about the opportunity that exists with the Savannah River National Lab, and we are honored to participate in the panel this morning. Representative Bill Taylor is in the audience. He's in the fourth table back on the right, on the left side of the room, on our right, and I want to recognize him. The first question is, what is the vision? In our legislative delegation, in conjunction with the local economic development partnerships, both in Aiken County and Edgefield County and in Barnwell County, we have a goal and a vision, and that is to harness the Savannah River National Lab as a catalyst for private entrepreneurship and private economic investment, similar to efforts that have been undertaken at Oak Ridge in Tennessee, at the Sandia and Los Alamos National Labs in New Mexico, at the Idaho Falls National Lab in Idaho, and at the Brookhaven National Lab in New York. And so the next question is how do we achieve that vision? And so what we've done is our delegation has been working together, united in our efforts to engage the governor of South Carolina as well as the Secretary of Commerce in recent months to understand the potential that exists in this community and in this part of South Carolina and in this part of the Southeast surrounded with the existence and presence of the National Lab. In fact, the governor was just here on Monday of this week, and she toured certain facilities associated with the National Lab. And I think that she left here with a new appreciation, a new understanding of the potential that exists. And she actually has contacted us and asked that we connect Terry and the Secretary of Commerce to have a discussion about current understandings that exist at Commerce that with respect to what can be done with the National Lab, but also to address any misunderstandings or communications that existed in the past, so that we can better harness the National Lab, and so that's ongoing. We've got to use the broad and unique expertise of the National Lab to support economic development and law enforcement efforts, both in South Carolina and in the southeastern region. And so, somebody may ask, and the press may ask, what are some examples of things that have been done in other parts of the nation? And I mentioned specifically those other national labs where their states have engaged and done some things. But if we look at New Mexico, they have provided tax credits for Los Alamos and Sandia National Labs for the New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program. In Tennessee, there's been enormous support from the state for several areas, including infrastructure. David just mentioned infrastructure that we need to focus on here. Well, Tennessee has invested in infrastructure in both graduate student programs as well as university chairs at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And in New York, they have provided support for programs at the Brookhaven National Lab through the university partner Stony Brook. And at Idaho, there's been support for the advanced energy studies at Idaho National Lab. That's done through the state academic research institutions, in particular Boise State, Idaho State, and University of Idaho. So we have a very similar vision here in South Carolina, and we're going to be very aggressive about this. Again, our governor and our Secretary of Commerce are receptive, but most importantly, our community and our legislative delegation and our joint economic development partnerships are united in doing what we have to do to take this national lab to the next level and to help it achieve what it can achieve to benefit our region and our state and our community.
Well, thanks for having me, everybody, and it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here during this 10th anniversary celebration and to represent the Savannah River Nuclear Solutions Board of Directors and maybe industry as a whole. This is really, as many of you know, a really special place. And a special place that it resonates with industry for a lot of reasons. I think the first reason, first and foremost, is the Savannah River National Laboratory is really seen in the DOE complex as the lab that gets things done. That a lab that is an applied science lab, where science is focused on mission accomplishment, and all industry partners like to see that. We like to see something get done from a good workforce in a special place like this lab. Also, the national and international reputation that the lab has. We've been involved as parent companies here since 2008 and watched this lab grow under Terry's leadership and vision, and building new programs, expanding into environmental expertise, which now is sought globally, and most recently to help deal with the recovery in Fukushima, Japan. It's become a world leader in advanced chemical and material manufacturing and helping to manage legacy waste better, something that's very important to the environment, to us, and as I said, to industry. Also, we like to see the broad application of the lab's interests in other federal agencies, and particularly for the FBI, which was already mentioned, that this lab maintains the country's only forensic lab that can handle nuclear materials. And for the Department of Homeland Security, it built and tested a system for examining and detecting nuclear materials on containers arriving across our nation's ports. Very important missions, things that industry gravitates to, and been honored for that. So in 2013 alone, as everyone knows, the Secretary of Energy presents honor awards, and the Savannah River National Lab has been part of teams that have won 3 of these awards. The first for safely securing nuclear material around the globe, for developing a new manufacturing process used to stabilize radioactive waste, and for completing the safe cleanup of high-level waste of storage tanks right here at the Savannah River site. So 3 very notable and award-winning endeavors. So as Dr. Moody mentioned, the parent companies in Savannah River Nuclear Solutions invest in the lab, invest our own money in the lab, and we think it's not only a worthy cause, but a requirement of us to be part of this important laboratory. Dr. Moody also mentioned the 6 new laboratories and office complex that serve as a focal point for new research, attracting $6 million worth of clean energy programs and partnerships since it was opened less than a year ago. A very impressive facility. If you have the opportunity to tour that facility, it's really worth it. And a facility that is outside the wire to bring in other types of exciting new opportunities. So I also like to take this opportunity to announce an investment the board has just approved, where we're committing more than $3 million to upgrade the infrastructure needed for growing the national security work the lab is doing in partnership with the U.S. Army Cyber Command at Fort Gordon. This will allow the lab to make a much more substantial contribution in the area of cybersecurity. Now, if you should forget any of these investments, on the bottom of this card are all 3 listed, so you have something to take home with you. But no, in all seriousness, the board and the investment companies could not be happier to be involved with this lab. We're always eager when Terry brings in new investment opportunities and to status us during our regularly scheduled board meetings on what the lab is actually doing. And we really want to continue to invest in the lab, be part of this community, and to be part of the future of Savannah River National Labs. And thanks again for having us, Terry.
Thank you. Well, good morning. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak about my favorite national laboratory. That's actually a very serious statement because I have worked with many of the nation's labs over several decades, and I feel the value provided by this one is truly exemplary. I am proud of SRNL. I'm proud of being a part of its external advisory board. That's an appointed body whose responsibility is to provide oversight and guidance in all matters pertaining to the laboratory. And I thought I'd share with you the caliber of the people who are willing to invest their time, because it speaks volumes of how this laboratory is regarded at the national level. Specifically, the EAB membership includes a former National Nuclear Security Agency administrator and U.S. ambassador, a former DOE Undersecretary for Science Programs, the head of the California Council for Science and Technology, and 2 former heads of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. It's a very strong board. And I'm going to talk a little bit about their assessment. The EAB's assessment is that SRNL's science and technology contributions have been and continue to be important to this region, more broadly to the nation, and have also been successfully applied internationally. They have an outstanding record of solving very real and very difficult problems. You've heard a little before that the essence of this laboratory's ability to make such contributions is engendered in their byline, "We put science to work." SRNL not only conceives new science and technology solutions, but it is able to scale and transfer those solutions into the production or field environment. Achieving the best solution often requires teaming with other institutions, and you heard a little bit about that too, because these entities range from universities to other national laboratories to commercial partners. And successful integration of such a complex team, together with a linkage to the customer, requires a complete understanding of all aspects of the technology development process and the implementation thereof. So, just to remind you a little, to illustrate this capability, let me share a few recent examples utilized at SRS. They range from the implementation of enhanced attenuation for groundwater cleanup to work on tight-knit materials to support high-level waste processing, to in situ decommissioning of nuclear facilities. All of these successes, which were highly progressive in their respective areas, have achieved more cost-effective and timely solutions for the Savannah River site. And these are results that ultimately benefit all taxpayers, as well as the local community. And the core of the uniqueness of these accomplishments is the ability to move from science to technology to field solution in a relatively short period of time. It's a uniqueness this laboratory has. Now, furthermore, these technologies can be transferred to, that is, utilized by other locations needing similar solutions, and that generally requires some site-specific adaptation and tailoring. And ongoing examples are something that were mentioned also a little: parallel high-level waste work for the Hanford site and support for the unprecedented disaster at Fukushima. Therefore, this laboratory contributes to a broad range of DOE national and international problems, not only from its own technical strength, but also in leadership and coordination with other laboratories' capabilities, and of course with other sites. But I have a caution here. As we move forward with the nation's agenda, it is clear that even more revolutionary concepts will be needed to solve important problems in national security, energy security, and environmental cleanup. And SRNL is now focusing on the reinvention of the core approach to nuclear chemical engineering processes. This, when successful, will ensure this site's role as the vanguard of manufacturing in these critical areas. But we have a little black cloud on the horizon, and there's a major concern about the future of our national laboratory within the context of all national laboratories. The 2014 Senate Energy Bill calls for a BRAC-like activity in which a commission is to review the effectiveness of all the national laboratories. The focus, and I quote, will be to more effectively and efficiently use the capabilities of national laboratories, including consolidation and realignment. As I have demonstrated by the examples I've shared with you, the lab has made many major contributions regionally and nationally. It has a strong foundation of accomplishment that's based on its unique capability set. But a difference can sometimes be a strength and sometimes be a weakness, and we need to push behind the strength this laboratory has. It's now time for us to demonstrate our understanding of and support for this value. Collectively, we need to move the laboratory to the forefront from a regional point of view. And that is going to require the collective efforts of everyone here today: academia, business, and government. Thank you.
Thanks very much to each of the panel members. And so we have a little bit of time before we break and then go to the larger celebration. And so if there are questions from the audience, we have a microphone. Go ahead.
I'm Fred Humes and Director of the Applied Research Center. And first of all, I want to thank SRNL, SRNS for the development of the Energy Materials Lab over at the Applied Research Center. That is truly a great potential in the materials area. I do have one question for Dave and perhaps for Bruce also. I understand the Secretary has placed great emphasis on technology transfer commercialization under his program. I'm wondering how that is coming, and are you working with the labs in order to develop these new programs?
There's lots of Daves here.
But I'll defer to my,
I knew that was
bosses.
Well, as I mentioned, Terry was up in Washington not long ago, and he and Mark Gilbertson and I, on my staff, we were working with the Secretary's Advisory Board, so there's a clear recognition that there is both a skill set and a need, and so we need to match those up. So, you know, I don't have specifics on how this is all going to ultimately be glued together, but I can tell you that Terry is an integral part of actually trying to answer your question, basically.
And if I can, from industry, certainly the investment position was to bring in new emerging programs in a state-of-the-art facility that was very accessible to people who needed and wanted to use it. And thus far, we've seen that type of activity in that center.
I mean, to get back to your question, I mean, I guess if I understand, wanting to actually transfer this into actual use and benefit, you're using next generation solvent right now, and so you know how to do it, and we know how to follow that model. And Terry and I were pitching that model as a model that we need to follow. The work that the lab has done to improve the performance of the Defense Waste Processing Facility here is something that we talk regularly about in terms of lessons learned and sharing with our Hanford colleagues who are, you know, struggling somewhat, be behind you guys relative to starting up their own glass plant up there. So clearly we know you guys have done it, and we're going to continue to try to build on that model.
I think the research component has a place in that as well, and there's been a good start here with over 200 competitive R&D projects out of this national lab with graduate students and undergraduate students, and over 400 sponsored programs, research projects that may eventually lead students to found their own companies, to push that a little further, and to move that research into application. I think that's a key component to making it relevant to business.
Other questions?
You guys usually aren't that quiet here, Moody. I don't know. They're saving them for somebody, huh?
Hi, I'm Clint Wolf. I used to work at the lab. Currently Executive Director of Citizens for Nuclear Technology Awareness in Aiken. And one thing that I always thought was unique about SRNL and worries me when people talk about consolidation of either scope or laboratories is that SRNL's modus operandi was always one of being fully integrated into what was happening at the site. It's not a handoff mechanism. It's not send in your request and we'll mail you the answer kind of thing. It was always fully integrated. The feedback loops are very short, very timely, and so when something's tried in the lab and then worked in the field and the response gets back to the lab to refine it, that mechanism, that formula has worked extremely well over the years and isn't easily replicated by deciding you'll take some mission out of SRNL and put it in California. And don't have a particular one in mind, but I just wanted to caution that that is a very, very unique thing about the success of this laboratory, and most especially of this site, that they have had that kind of technical support readily available.
I think there's a clear recognition of that, right? You can harp back on the next generation solvent thing just one more time as a prime example of that. That started, you know, before I got involved in it, but with kind of basic research But you guys were involved from the get-go in trying to make sure that that basic research was actually connected to something that a need, and there was a clear trail from. So in that regard, you know, David Klaus and I were continuing to work with the other laboratories. I mean, there are labs that do basic research, and there are labs that do, connect the basic research to getting something done. And, you know, I see you guys as, you know, having demonstrated your capability in that regard, you probably can do both. So, you know, it's a good combination.
Clearly, the vision is to take that lack of a handoff, but partnership, and that's really how we are approaching our commercial endeavors. It isn't developing a technology. Microspheres are sitting right here, and these were actually developed for other purposes, but it was, you know, their drug delivery has opportunities for those have been recognized. And so we're not about to take that patented technology and hand it over to a partner and say, good luck. That's not the way this laboratory operates. It operates in partnership with the universities that are interested, the medical schools that are interested, the industry that is interested. It's that partnership. It isn't a handoff. It's moving it forward together. And so that's really been the strength of this laboratory embedded in the operations at the site. And now our challenge is how we know that works. And so now we're going to do that in the commercial sector. And we know that's going to work. And so you are right on in that that's been the strong suit of Savannah River National Laboratory when it was Savannah River Lab, when it was Savannah River Technology Center, and now as Savannah River National Laboratory, as that portfolio expands out into the commercial sector. So right on.
Okay. My name is Prakash Nagarkari. I'm Vice President for Research at University of South Carolina. I didn't have a question, but I just wanted to make a comment. And I completely support what Dr. Jordan mentioned, that I think we need to have better integration and collaboration between the universities and SRNL. Primarily because I think, as Dr. Jordan mentioned, our students and the faculty are very thirsty. They're looking for opportunities for collaborations and innovations. And I think one of the things we need to look into, and I've been in this office for about 3 years now, and I've developed a task force consisting of some of our scientists over here and faculty we meet regularly. But one of the things that we need to look into is, you know, trying to break down some of the barriers in trying to see how we can give appointments, for example, joint appointments to our faculty as well as your scientists at our university, so that we can have better flow of exchange of information and research materials and all that, in order to, you know, make sure that the university research is very well integrated with the overall mission of SRNL.
Other questions?
I'm Tim McLeese, I'm Chief of Staff for the Deputy Secretary of Energy. I wanted to make a comment, getting back to your question, to kind of highlight some of the things I already said about transition lab to market type of capabilities. First of all, brand new to the Department of Energy over here, about 5 or 6 months. This is my first opportunity to get out to one of the many DOE sites. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to see the good work that's going on here at Savannah River and the partnership and kind of the zeal for moving forward in the manner that they're already moving toward. I wanted to add to your question about transitioning lab ideas. I was sat in on a meeting at the White House on Monday, and the President has something called the President's Management Agenda, and has a council that looks at several different things. One of the key areas moving forward is something called lab to market. And in recognition for what DOE does in this area, DOE was often told to co-chair. We didn't have to lean forward and say, hey, we can do that. I mean, so this was led by OMB, and OMB recognized that the DOE has a significant part to play in lab-to-market type activities. And so it will be, the Deputy Secretary will be separate, so we will, in coming days, look to do a data call to kind of understand what's already going on in terms of technology transition, acceleration, that sort of thing. And then also seek your ideas as we kind of pull these things together. And again, it's not just this council and the Deputy Secretary co-chairing this is just DOE. We'll be looking across the USG to include the Department of Defense as well. But I think we need to absolutely have our act together with what's going on with DOE as we represent this activity.
Thank you.
You know, the partnership with the community is really important to us, and I'm glad we had an opportunity to use this bigger occasion to really hear your collective voices. And you know, there are real questions out there. You're right. The Secretary and the White House really want to see a better way to move technology out of the labs into the private sector. There's also this thing that goes in the other direction. The private sector has a lot of good ideas too. Are there things in the lab that would allow them to exercise that idea better? I think we have an opportunity to show how that can really work. You know, no offense to Washington, but sometimes all the answers don't come from there. Sometimes they come from here. And so I think a tremendous opportunity for us as a community to take that leadership. So anyway, thank you all very much, and looking forward to the public ceremony and a great lunch, and again, thanks for coming.